Hi, the December meeting of the Citizen Involvement Council is now coming to order. For those of you who may be watching us on cable, this is a convenience of all the neighborhoods. They all have representatives here, and we discuss things among ourselves that we do in our neighborhoods, and also the city shares some of the things that they're doing so that we have a feedback in both directions with the citizenry and the city of Oregon City. Our first order of business is our attendance. Roll call. Amy, would you like to do that?
All right, Tony Uzuebunam. Michael Berman.
Here.
Paul Edgar.
Here.
Amy Wilhite. I am here. Kathy Hogan.
Here.
Tom O'Brien.
Here.
Steve Anderson is excused. Faith Leith.
Here.
Alice Watts.
Here.
Damon Mabey.
Here.
Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Barbara Rankin.
Here.
Diane McKnight, Eileen Olson, and Marianne Jensen are all excused. Ingrid Rickenbach. Todd Last.
Here.
Brian Boyce.
Here.
And Kim Dye is excused.
Okay, thank you. I do have some agenda changes that I didn't notice when the agenda went out, some things that we had talked about putting on the agenda. Let's just go down, if everyone has a copy of their agenda. Under guest speakers, we will be hearing for 10 minutes from Jim Nacita on transparency and city government. He's going to give an introduction to a presentation he'll be doing later this year, or first of next year now. Then skipping down to unfinished business, we will be hearing from Bob LaSalle, our CIC bylaws chair. He has one more correction that we must ratify tonight for that. Under new business, we have something I stuck in there about ready.gov, about emergency preparedness. I'd like to talk about that again tonight. And then lastly, under committee reports, I do have a crime prevention report that I submitted in writing, but it didn't get attached, so I'm just going to give a verbal report on that tonight. And Paul Edgar does have a land use committee report, and I don't know if Bob has a transportation report, but if you want to give it verbally too, that would be fine. I didn't see an attachment. Okay, well then I must not be working on the most recent copy, because I
think I accidentally emailed out the wrong copy, but everything that was posted on the different posts positions and on the website were all the updated version.
Okay, thank you.
They did have the attachments.
Okay, do you think I missed anything, Katie, in the things that I covered? Did I?
No, that's everything.
Okay.
And I printed out new copies in the back too.
Okay.
Anybody needs them.
Okay. So we have two guest speakers tonight. Our first one is Maureen Cole, our library director. And if Maureen would like to come up and talk to us now?
I'm Don Wright. I'm the president of the library board. Oh, I'm sorry. Don Wright, president of the library board.
Hi. Thanks for having us here tonight. We wanted to update you on what is going on with the library building. Some of you have heard this before, and so Bob, if you want to just jump in whenever I'm wrong, just correct me. Have you good, Paul? Me too. Yeah, I know he will. So anyway, the site of the new library was designated as the Carnegie Park and Building on June 19th of this last summer at the City Commission, and that was the same day, interestingly enough, that we also read the resolution for the 100th anniversary. So that was kind of a ironic or fabulous, depending on your viewpoint. And since then, we've been doing studies to make sure that our assumptions about the cost of building on that site were correct. So we did a parking study, a geotech for the land that's behind the building to kind of investigate what's back there. We did a tree study. I think those were the three. And there are no significant red flags that we didn't already know about jumped out at us. Since that time, the other thing that we've also done is purchase a small parking lot that's on the corner of Jefferson and 7th on our side of 7th, just above the library, which I didn't even know existed as a separate lot. Because first of all, it's really hard to see because it kind of goes uphill a little bit, and then there's like kind of hedgy stuff there, so you don't really see it. But there's about 19 or 20 spaces in there. So we went ahead and purchased that because we figured even if we just get staff off of the street, that will help improve the parking that's in that vicinity. According to the parking study that was done, we need about 60 spaces, which is about 3,000 per 1,000 square feet, and we're going to end up with a building about 20,000 square feet. So that's about 60 spaces in the vicinity. And with that lot, we're more or less okay. You guys also may know that they're putting in a lit crosswalk. I'm sure John has told you this. At the corner of 7th and John Adams. So that will make crossing 7th a little easier. So that should help out too. So a couple of weeks ago, we came back to the City Commission and presented our findings. That included a revised budget. That the good news was it went down just a smidge instead of going up, which is great. And it's about $10 million for the total package. So it remains in that vicinity, 9.8, $10 million. That includes about $1 million of contingency, which of course every building project runs into contingency. That amount, we're running a bunch of numbers right now, but that amount should still be revenue neutral as far as taxes go. So we will have to borrow. We'll have about $3 to $4 million when we start building, but we will have to borrow. But we, as you know, we have the library district, and from the income that we get from the library district, we believe we can take care of the annual debt service with that money so that we won't have to ask taxpayers for any more money. What we will have to ask taxpayers for is the permission to borrow that rest of that money. So on December 11th, Tuesday, I keep getting my dates really messed up. No. On Tuesday, December, whatever it is, of next week, thanks for your help, there's a work session of the City Commission, and at that point in time, Bond Council will be coming to present kind of an overview of the bond discussion with some numbers and that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, which of course money is a pretty interesting topic, we'll start that discussion. That we'll also be talking a little bit about like when the election is. At this point in time, we've been working off the assumption that it would be next May, but the final decision has not been made on that. So I brought with us one of the images that an architectural firm from Portland did for us when we were looking at making a decision about this site. This is the image that's 2-story, and most people, not everyone, like this, because of course not everybody is in favor of building there, but of the people that like the idea of building there, most people like this one because it takes up the least amount of park space. And so it leaves more of the integrity of the park in place. And also the way they captured this one, it captures some really nice architectural elements of the original Carnegie. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with historical law or guidelines of what you're supposed to do when all the national stuff of when you're adding on to historical stuff. Very, very strict. And what I didn't know before I got into this is that you're not supposed to build your addition to look like your existing building, the historical building. I mean, I guess I learned that by sitting through all the City Commission meetings about the Atkinson Church. But so a lot of people say, why doesn't it just look like exactly like the Carnegie? And well, we can't make it look exactly like the Carnegie because that would be against the historical rules that are in front of us. So, but that does pick up some nice features of the original Carnegie. And that addition will be about 15,000 square feet. And as I said, bring the total square footage about 20 or 22,000, depending on how you measure our existing building. There's some conflicts about that, just because it hasn't been done recently. So, so that's how we're proceeding at this point in time. The RFP for the architect went out last week, and we hope to interview architectural firms after the first of the month of the year. And then we'll proceed with getting the project manager and the contractor on board. And we hope to do some design work before the bond so that we can have an additional design thing. So you'll hear more about public meetings and stuff like that once we get the architect on board. And we'll probably have to move the library temporarily while building is going on. And building would take about 1 year once it gets up and running. And we hope to start in a drier season than midwinter. So timing of things is very important. And that will help us once we get this bond thing figured out when we're going to do it. Would you like to add anything?
Well, just that the library board, the volunteer portion like yourself, worked very hard to find a site. We rejected this site, we rejected this site, we rejected this site as we looked around to 40,
30 something, yeah.
30 some different sites, and none of them, none of them either fit our needs or
We're available.
were available. One was at the end of a dead-end road. It didn't work, that kind of idea. So when we revisited this, we did so with kind of new eyes, saying, well, what is the city of Oregon City about? It's about its history, and this is certainly part of that history. So to enhance that history, but look to the future, I'm thinking it's a good match. And the rest of the board thought that was a good match too. So we all of a sudden got excited, and then we saw this drawing. I was at the presentation when the architects brought it to the city council, up in one of those little places up there, and they said, "Well, this is just a drawing. I understand it's not really." I said, "We want that." I said, "But it's just a drawing." I said, "No, we want that." They were totally impressed with the idea of having the 2 stories, keeping the architecture of the Carnegie pretty much on the bottom level, but having glass and air and light and greenery in the upper part to complement the park. It's just a wonderful idea. There's some other ideas too, but I won't go on. But we're just enthralled with the idea.
Well, we have a number of people who have questions. We're going to start with Amy.
When I heard the presentation at City Commission, the presenter, I can't remember what his name was, he was mentioning 80 parking spaces, and you're saying 60. And I'm wondering where you get that. Where have you found 60 parking spaces? Because when I drive around and I see all the other businesses and I see where the people are parked, where are you coming up with that you have 60 spaces?
Well, I would have to go back and look at the parking study to see where he actually counted them, but we hope to turn some of the parking on 6th, maybe make it diagonal. I think that striping would actually help add to there being spaces, because then it would keep people a little bit more regimented about where they're parking. But that street we think is wide enough to add a few spaces by going diagonal. The parking study does include spaces that are not necessarily adjacent to us, but could include spaces over by the Pioneer Center or behind Atkinson Church or around. It doesn't have to be like right adjacent to our block.
I think that's important to make sure that people know how far out you're going for your 60 spaces. Because if you've got 12 that are right there that might be easily handicapped, or I know you can't mark them on the street as such, but if you're reaching out 5 blocks to get your 60, that's kind of a really negative.
Yeah, they didn't go that far, but they did go across 7th, I believe.
Is the fire station an issue?
I'm sure they included some of that, yeah. Well, because we do have some right across the street
3.
as well. No, more than 3, more like.
Well, it's public parking, but it's always.
Yeah, but we can.
But you can't count it specifically as if everybody else has to share it, right?
I don't really know what the case is on that. I mean, that we'd need to have Tony Conkle here to tell us about how they count parking spaces. Yeah.
Because I have yet to have that explained.
But great question. I'll look into that more.
Paul, you're next.
I'd like to come back and thank this team that did this. You're wrestling down something that's really hard. All the trade-offs, all the places you looked at, but if we didn't have really what I call an enthusiastic, can-do staff and board working hard to make it happen, it wouldn't happen. And this is a very important element of our city. And having it happen, I just come back and all I can say is thank you. Just
Thank you.
Damon?
Well, I'm not one of the opponents of the site. In fact, I wondered why 25 years ago, when it was warehoused, they weren't building here so that they could move back here. But I do have some questions. You said when it's done, it'll be roughly 20,000 square feet. What is that in comparison to the space they had at Danielson's?
The Danielson's was 13,000 square feet.
Okay, so
Yeah, so it'll be
we
more
do
than that.
gain.
Mhm.
Didn't some of the initial studies say that a proper-sized library for us would be about 45,000 square feet?
Yeah, so the OLA, the Oregon Library Association standards as they currently exist would say that we should have in excess of, 40,000 square feet. For the population that we serve, which is 54,000 people in our service area that's been assigned to us in the link, the Clackamas County thing. Now, I'm on the committee that is currently reviewing all these standards, and I have obviously a lot of interest in the facility standard. And what we've decided to do as a very, very large group is to take out that formula and give people resources that let them know what's going on nationally, and have them look at it more in a qualitative way instead of just a formula. It's not enough space based on that formula, but with technology changing everything so much, it's a little bit harder to make the argument that that formula still works perfectly. We're getting a lot of people into libraries more as like a community center these days, so that we still need an awful lot of people space, but how we use the space in libraries is changing. So although it's not the 40,000 square feet that formula would suggest, that of course was, it could be in multiple buildings as well. It wouldn't have to be in just one building. I think what we're coming up with is a building that fits our community, and that I'd like to investigate other ways to serve the community afterwards, after we get this done, more in other areas of our big, huge service area, and kind of maybe have some other service points elsewhere.
The interesting thing to us as a board when Maureen presents her statistics each month is that usage in our little dinky Carnegie with limited resources has stayed about the same as it was, or even more, at Danielson's, correct?
It's about 80%, steadily about 80% of what it was at Danielson's.
Yeah.
So we're doing in 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, 80% of what we used to be doing at 13,000
So
square feet.
it begs the question, would a larger building bring in more people? I don't know. And is that the point? Yeah, it is. But probably an efficient building of 20,000 or so square feet that serves the needs of not only our generation, which is the book generation, but also the electronic generation, which is our kids, is what we have to go for. And it's a hard think. We don't know exactly how to do that yet, but we know it's there. But that's where we think we can do it.
Okay. I guess one request or thought I would have when the architects start architecting is that they look at designing the new building with expansion in mind, that you build it right so that you could put a third floor on it. I mean, if you're looking at 7,500 square feet per floor, then that's a fairly quick fix to expand the library, even if all you do is turn it into a conference space or something along those lines initially, and then fill it. I understand the 45,000 was based on book volume, which now has become tablets and e-readers and people just, coming in, getting their book and leaving as opposed to browsing, which is what I enjoy doing. I don't know what I'm going to read until I've spent about 3 hours in a library.
We hope to meet all those needs.
Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
your book collection. I know what you mean.
Yeah, that's true. I know you saw most of it now. The lot you mentioned that was up on Jefferson, is that the one that's across the street from Mike's?
No, it's right next to there's a doctor's office, and then there's a house just to the south of it that's some kind of offices are in there, a brown house, but it's right.
Do you know
on
where
the-
H&R Block is?
Yeah.
It's in between us and H&R Block.
It's almost invisible
Okay.
as you have to kind of.
Yeah.
You don't really want to stop on 7th Street to look at it, but it's there, and it's got a lot of Oregon grape growing around it.
Yeah. So, and then the last thing, I guess, is the M&A pushback about parking. You're definitely going to need to be able to point to where you got those 60 spaces. And the first thing we're going to say is, who else is also counting those spaces? One of the things that popped up with Olson's facility was they were counting spaces that they had on lease to, that they had leased to another place that was counting them for their spaces. So when they took the lease back, that other place now became out of compliance. And now there's a 15-year business that theoretically has to move because they don't have enough spaces. So it's, you don't get to completely count like the Ermitinger spaces. Now that nobody's going to Ermitinger, so yes, you can. But then what happens when Ermitinger? So you need to. We're going to ask. Show us the parking. So
Maureen, maybe on your next report you could get that information from
Oh,
Tony.
okay.
Because that is
yeah.
a major
Yeah.
stumbling block for most anyone who lives in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They're concerned about that.
Yeah.
The whole city, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be nice to be able to share that on Thursday at the luncheon.
Damon, are you? Okay, let's go. Bob?
Do you have a location yet for the temporary site while it's under construction?
No.
Okay.
If you have any ideas, let me know.
large garage, everybody else seems to be using it.
What?
I have a large garage and
Oh.
everybody else seems to be using it.
Faith?
Is there, can I, oh, go ahead.
Well, that was one of my questions was, that, have you thought about, I'm concerned about the parking too, because I attend Atkinson and we have all kinds of concerns with the neighbors and stuff there. What about paving over the fountain that you have there and just making a small parking lot? Had that been considered?
No. No.
Well, I know, it takes
yeah.
away from the park,
Yeah, it
but
does.
parking's going to be a major concern.
Yeah.
And I do pull into that lot next to the fire station often, and there's always one or two spots there. If you're just running in and you have to get your books online anyway. You have to put holds on them. That's the only way you can get books with this library right now, so.
Well, it's the only way you can get books from any library, depending on where you're going. The popular ones are always out. But
Yeah.
we actually I would rather look at open space at the Pioneer Center before I would want to pave over the spray park. I think I would be like less scalp taking. But that spray park is insanely
It's popular.
popular. And
Yeah, it's popular.
I mean,
There was
kids
another-
are like our business at the library, so it really fits well with like what we do. And so I would hate to see that ever happen.
Yeah, frankly, the grass next to the parking lot at the Pioneer Center is unused space. It just gets mowed. I've never even seen anybody do anything other than cut
Where's
across
that?
it.
There's
Catty corner.
in between the existing parking lot at Pioneer Center and the Sister City Park is quite a bit of space that could potentially someday down the road be turned into parking.
Does the city have control over the Pioneer Center?
Yeah. Yeah, we own it.
There's actually been a study on that spot to see what could go up or down or inside or something, so that's a very viable idea.
John?
I just wanted to say a couple things. Maureen, the last time I was at the Portland Library, I think I probably walked 6 or 8 blocks just to get to the
Downtown library?
downtown library.
Yeah.
branch? Yeah.
the downtown
Yeah.
branch, and enjoyed every minute of the walk, by the way. And so that's one comment I'll make. The other is, if you're looking at parking, you might also look at how the parking works for the concerts in the park, because I know a lot of those people are driving to that concert, and so they're finding parking. They're finding it enough to get to the concert in the park. So that's another consideration. I guess the other thing is just regionally, transportation planning is moving more and more towards a lot of modes of travel besides vehicles. So the expectation is people are going to be finding other ways to get. And I know McLaughlin is a steep neighborhood, and that's a challenge. But I still think that there's a lot of potential for more walking trips to that library.
And a lot of the neighbors walk, which is great. Yeah. Thank you.
Kathy?
You were talking about a place. Is there any space at Eastham or the old high school, or is Barclay totally filled up? I mean, is there any spaces like that can be used temporarily?
We'll be looking at those. That's a really great idea. Yeah.
At least 3 in the school district. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean for parking?
No, for
the
temporary
temporary
space.
library.
Temporary library, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Space with lights and heat, that's basically what you need.
Yeah, and a strong floor.
Yeah, that's that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And our last question, Mike?
It's not really a question. I just think that it's important. There's so many questions. Everybody still has questions. It's almost like we're creating a forum again, and I applaud everything you've done. I really hate to see the beauty of our library changed, and for a lot of reasons. For as a movie site, as a photographic site, the setting is insanely unique and beautiful to the Carnegie. His mission throughout the country, and we have such a great example of it. I just applaud it. And this is maybe out of context, but everybody has had the digressions tonight. The reason I brought up when John asked, when I asked John what library, Portland has a lot of libraries, and the thing that I've thought about over the last 3 years since I've been kind of following it is and I know how some of it has to do with staffing, and you brought up about having 2 levels as opposed to 3 levels at different staffings. Did it ever, and whatever happened to the chain of thought of having maybe 2 alternative satellite, 1 level, 5,000 square foot libraries in a maybe in a triad of equal areas, so that there wouldn't be as much transportation, so that there would be in neighborhoods. So perhaps there could be a easily staffed triad of libraries, perhaps in Oregon City, that each one could actually be built up as it grew. Right. And then it would actually leave this library, which is fairly large, and I feel like it's very underbooked. The bookshelves are low, and it's an underbooked library in my mind. Whatever happened to that chain of thought for having a satellite system?
Well, it got outvoted, basically. I really think that branches are possible and maybe a good answer in this community, but I think that we need a main library and a place where we can have presentations and performances that are a little bit more comfortable and larger than what this library can have, and that we need to have a place that has quiet study rooms and spaces like that we just do not even have. I mean, if somebody takes a phone call now at the Carnegie, they have to go outside if they don't want everybody to hear it, which is my preference, but I hate to kick people out into the rain. I mean, we don't even have a lobby. So I just feel like this community really needs something that is a main library with a few amenities to it that branches might not have. Branches don't typically have meeting rooms and stuff like that unless they're, big enough. The other thing is, as far as staffing, it doesn't take a lot of people to run a branch, but it still takes more people than we currently would have. And I think that you're going to see that staffing here is going to stay flat for quite a long time, because if we want to not raise taxes, then we need to keep staffing really under control. And something that I was thinking about as far as bringing services out into the community would be something more like a counter inside of an existing building where people could drop off and pick up their holds, which, as Faith said, is such a large part of what we do now. So something out like on 213, I've been envisioning it for some reason like Hagen's, because I'm thinking, yeah, they could donate some space to us, and then you could have one person go there for like 4 or 5 critical hours a day. You don't need to worry about their security because they're surrounded by other people. You don't need to worry about operating and maintaining an entire building and how that's so expensive, because somebody else is, even if you just pay them a little bit of rent, you don't need that much space to have a drop-off spot somewhere else, and it would bring so much convenience to people who do not live down here when all they really need is that 5 minutes in and out. So I'm trying to envision other things that provide the service without costing a lot, like hardly anything at all, but still then having a main library where you could have the community center types of amenities that libraries are really good at bringing people together for these days. That's one of the things that we're starting to really do best. So that's kind of where that conversation went sideways, Michael. And there's something to having satellites. I just, really want to think very intentionally about what they end up looking like and how expensive they are and how they're staffed and stuff. And I really believe in main libraries. And even though Portland has a ton of libraries, they still have a main central library. And a lot of their branches are pretty small. And I think it's a function of the neighborhoods that you see in Portland, too. And then what we have needs to be a function of Oregon City and what fits us. So we kind of think that this model needs to, we need to start with this. So that's where we are right now.
That would help with the traffic thing, too.
Would,
if
wouldn't
you
it?
had, oh,
Yeah.
That would be a wonderful idea.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you
I
like it.
that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Okay,
very
and
much.
I'm sorry, I just want to correct one more thing. The work session was brought up, and that actually is Tuesday, December 10th. So just want to correct that date. And typically they start at 5:30, although the agenda hasn't been posted yet for this next week's work session, but it should be posted by Friday. And you can see again that it's the 10th, and typically 5:30 is when it begins.
And then we're doing like a ton of things at the library these days too, and I did bring some flyers that I stuck in the back, and I'll just leave those back there, and I'll leave this image here till tomorrow too. Yes, Tom's got one. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Okay, now our next item is actually item B.
Oh, that's right.
Jim Nocita is going to actually give us some handouts tonight, some things for us to think about. Tonight he's just going to give us an introduction of what he plans to talk about at a future meeting. It's going to take just about 10 minutes, and if you do have some questions tonight, that'll be all right, but we don't want to belabor it because the information he's handing out now is what we need to study before we meet again on this subject. So, Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Watts. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. While Maureen's still in the chamber, I want to kind of brag on her and her staff and Sue Adams, the librarian, because I've become a big fan of something Sue got a grant for, which is putting the old Oregon City newspapers, going back to the Spectator and the Argus and the Enterprise, up through 1923 in digital copies online on a website called Historic Oregon Newspapers. If you Google that, it's fascinating. Every page of the newspaper is a separate PDF file, and you can go back and read about what John McLaughlin's doing, and as if you were living in the day. It's just amazing. I can't say enough about it. It's really awesome. So I'll give myself a challenge here and try to not take 10 minutes, but take 5 minutes. I know I have a problem sometimes in speaking in paragraphs instead of sentences, so I will try to train myself for that. I just want to give a preview of some of the discussions I've had with the executive committee, and a couple of the issues was my outline was quite extensive, and it wasn't going to be really possible to go through everything I wanted to go through in 20 minutes. So what we decided to do was try to truncate it, and what I decided to do was just kind of put what I think is the most important issue on the January agenda. If that whets people's appetite, we can, I don't know, maybe continue the conversation. But the key issue I think is relates to the city attorney and the way attorney-client privilege works in Oregon City, because we're one of the only two cities in the metro area where the manager hires the city attorney instead of the council. And that, I think, creates some dynamics that I'll explain when we have that discussion. And then, so that's actually, there's a memo on that the city attorney did speak to one of the issues there as relates to privilege between staff and individual city commissioners, which I think you'll find quite interesting if you some of it's legalese, but I think it's a pretty straightforward memo. And then Chair Watts made an excellent suggestion that I was very much in favor of, which was talking about the charter in general, because a lot of these issues regarding transparency just, to me, relate to how our city's structured in our charter. And so there's also a memo here on that was created in 2010 on a charter amendment review process. And before January, I'll provide some more information, maybe in a PDF file, on our charter and a model charter that the League of Cities generated. So did I do that under 5?
You did. Now, what I would ask you, and we may have some questions from the members, I don't know, but aside from reading this, what kind of preparation would you like us to make as members so that we can dialogue with you when you meet with us again and not waste a lot of time on things that were in your information that, I just want us to be good students.
Sure. This will, as I mentioned, this will be follow-up by some additional examples, but I think the best preparation, because it'll take some time, the best preparation, because I think every citizen should do this, is get to know Oregon City's charter well. Mm-hmm. And so you'll have a month in advance to read the charter and see all the sections and how the city is structured. And so when we talk about it in January, you'll have a ready reference of study beforehand.
Would you be willing to take some of the members' questions as you prepare for our next meeting, so that
if anybody wants to email either through the chair or any, sure.
If they have specific questions. I told you this in an email, and I'll share this with the rest of the members. The executive board and I talked about this. There are a lot of things about the charter that we are not familiar with, and we kind of were thinking it would be a great primer for us if you could share some of the basics.
Yeah. And that's why having the model charter next to our charter is going to be, I think, pretty informative.
And most citizens, I think, we run into this when we're at the farmers market and we're encouraging people to join the neighborhood associations. So often they say, nobody listens to me. I don't know what to do. I have no power. And indeed, that's not true. And if you could help us understand how the bureaucracy, if you will, does work, then we can utilize it better and be more proactively involved in city government.
Absolutely.
So, are there any comments, Damon?
I look forward to the discussion, but I guess my general comment is I'm fairly reticent to start talking about charter amendments. I mean, the documents work pretty darn good for 170 years. And it has not been tinkered with nearly as much as the Oregon Constitution, which is, we got, 52 amendments on ours, 2 of which have had to be repealed because they were amended in haste and repealed at leisure, I believe is the appropriate. So may have been taken 20 years, but so that would be my cautionary tale to people. I mean, there are some genuine concerns, but just slapping a charter amendment down sometimes is not the best. It's the shotgun for the fly situation. So.
Well, and our organization is one of education. That's where I'm going with this with Jim, is to help the citizens know how city government works so they can actively get involved and not just sit on the sidelines and feel helpless. So, Michael?
I think Faith is next.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm confused. Okay, when I heard that you were going to address transparency, I thought there was an issue with transparency, with us not doing things so that the public can see it. I mean, we're on television. We don't try to have too many heavy discussions away from this room. But this sounds like it's going to be more a presentation of how the charter works and what our role is in it, so that we can reach out to people in the community. Which one?
That's a good question. I think my response would be the issue of transparency touches on a number of things. One is the structure of the charter and how that works, and another might be city ordinances and city policies and state law too. It's a dynamic of a whole mess of things. And part of the issue in my first attempt to give the executive committee an outline was I tried to cover all of that. And that would be a 3-hour discussion and not a 15 minutes discussion. So I think it's got to be handled in chunks. And this is where I felt the starting point could be. But again, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff, so if people want to go into other areas, I'm more than happy to do
But
so.
there wasn't an issue that came up that we were not functional in a transparent
You mean the
way?
CIC?
Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely. I think the CIC is
Okay.
a crucial element of transparency.
Oh, we're making the city council, the city commission more transparent or something.
Well, I think the whole, I guess it would be the whole city government is issue, because there's some issues with the council, there's some issues with staff, there's some issues with state law, there's some issues with ordinance, and again, it's a wide net to cast. Yeah. So thanks for the time, and I look forward to.
Well, I think we have a couple more questions for you before you
sure.
go.
I just wanted to say that I'm oftentimes reticent of change. When they changed the Book of Common Prayer from the 1924 version and the amazing language that they had to our modern language, I still haven't gotten over that.
You still have a Mike, you still have a King James Bible?
So I'm with that, but the Charter, along with our Constitution, are living documents, and I think it's an interesting aspect. I never realized that. And maybe it's okay that we are one of 2 municipalities over dozens or maybe hundreds that have a different form of a charter. So it's an interesting topic, and I'm interested to know more about it and why maybe we are the only one left over from a different time.
Todd?
I kind of want to echo Michael's comments, and also to kind of talk about what Damon said about not just changing things for change's sake. I think this is a really interesting issue. I've had discussions with people that have mentioned pieces of this, but what I'd like to hear from you, what's kind of missing from this document, it has this charter amendment and the issue, but I don't see anything about the pluses and minuses of, why is this a problem, and what's going to be solved by changing that. And I'm also kind of curious too is kind of the history of why are we in Tualatin the only ones that have it this way, and it's why is having it this model way any better, And so that's the part that's missing for me on here. And then as we do future discussions, that would be very helpful, so we can make a real intelligent decisions about things.
Okay.
Katie?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm not really sure. I think this is a very interesting discussion, and I'm just not really sure when it has the proposal on here, proposing to amend the city charter to empower city commissioner or city commission rather than city manager to hire and fire the city attorney, clarify that individual city commissioners do not lie outside of the attorney-client privilege between staff and the city attorney. Proposal, are you proposing that this, like, I'm not really sure how this pertains to the CIC, I guess. What can the CIC do, or what is the point of the presentation to the CIC? To me, this sounds like it should go to the city commission. Or if it's something that is a state law, should go to the state legislature, or, you know, wherever it appropriately needs to go. So I just was wondering that part.
Just, sure, thanks. The way this proposal, the way the original outline was, going back to my first presentation back in, I think, September, what I had proposed to do at that time was to structure an outline where I would have an issue, give a case study. I think Damon had specifically requested that the case studies also have an example from some other jurisdiction on how they do something or how we do something different, and how that could be debated. And then and then I also indicated that given the issues I was going to raise, I was going to put forth a proposal on how to improve transparency and free access to information. So when I originally made the outline, instead of, I have 2 Roman numerals here, I think I had 4 or 5, and each one had issue, case study, proposal. So I think it can go to the city commission. I think I was sharing and having a discussion with the executive committee on the mission statement on the website for the CIC, and what I see the role of the CIC is to be a forum where citizens can come and raise issues and suggest changes or doing things in a different way, because we are this is the forum of neighborhoods, and everybody here can take information and ideas back to their local neighborhood associations to carry on a discussion there and have ideas percolate in a conversation carry forward in the community to inform both us and the commission on how to do something. And I don't even think it's necessarily an issue with the commission specifically, for the reason that charter amendments, for example, as I point out here, it can happen through the commission through a referral, and our water rate measure was a referral from the city commission. But we can change the charter completely without any involvement of the city commission. And before we had the referred charter amendment on the water rate rollback, we had the most recent change before that to the charter was the Measure 3407 urban renewal charter amendment was a citizen petition, and actually we have one of our chief petitioners on the CIC, Barbara Rankin. So that's so I think when you're considering something as far as the charter, I think as we'll discuss, the city commission is one part of the charter, but it's the charter amendment process itself can not involve the city commission at all.
And I would caution you not to necessarily be trying to convince anyone of the change. What I would like you to do, and I hope that I expressed this in my emails to you, is tell us how it works now, how our charter works now, and how other charters might work better if a certain situation were handled there than here. Or maybe not necessarily better, but the outcome might have been different because the law was different. Is that not clear?
Well, I don't have detailed knowledge of 30
Yeah.
different communities and how their dynamics work in those communities.
Well,
Um,
to understand why we would want to change our charter, we'd have
Yeah.
to understand why it needs to be changed.
Yes, and that's what the case studies are designed to do.
Okay. Kathy?
Yes, I'm interested in this stuff. I think the public should be interested in it. It's how the government works, and many times, because we have been some land use issues coming up, and it seems to some of these people that staff and the city are be good little children, don't make waves. You need R6 at the end of the urban growth boundary, even though everything's R8 and R10. But they're not the ones living in there, having to try to get out of their driveway. So, I mean, the charter is guiding them in these things. Metro's guiding them. So the more educated we are, the better we could be in educating the commission and the city government what the neighbors need and want within their community. So I applaud being educating us. Thank you.
Bob?
Well, this is kind of interesting conversation because 2 years ago, Commissioners Kathy Roth and Betty Mumm were tasked to study the city charter. And nothing has been done. The last time it was mentioned in a city commission meeting, I think, was last December or maybe January, and they stated at the time that they thought it would be better to attack that subject again after the elections, and nothing's happened. So I guess perhaps they need a little nudging, and maybe a meeting like this might nudge them. And I'll just bring up our last changes to the CIC bylaws. Just because a document exists doesn't mean it's right in today's environment.
Sean?
Obviously, this has got some angles to it, political angles potentially to it. I don't play politics much, and I always struggle because I live in the city, so I want to put my citizen hat on sometimes, and I work for the city, so I usually can't. I guess if this is an educational piece, like you're kind of queuing it up to be. I'd love to hear people's opinions. I love to hear Jim's and everybody. I love opinions because it's usually you usually learn something from that. I guess my question is, Jim, in your case, in your specific case, and with the political history that you have in Oregon City, how unbiased can you be presenting this information? Do you feel like you can present the kind of point that you're trying to make? Because from what I remember from the first idea about having this was that there was some specific point or specific problem that you wanted to make. And so I'm just wondering, if we're talking Charter Amendments 101 or Charter 101 for what's right in the state, are you the right person to present this to us? Would it make sense to have someone that maybe doesn't live in Oregon City and is not politically connected in Oregon City to do that? Because I think it's important for us to have good information. I'm not saying you're not going to give us good information, but the way it's presented could be very biased, and I just think that that's a risk when people are trying to learn something and genuinely want to learn right from wrong. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know about the facts of only in Tualatin and Oregon City. Is that across the state? Is that what you're saying? They're the only two cities in the state?
No, it's in the Metro Portland area. And I actually made a chart of each city and cited. I can actually add that to the to what I provide. I've actually researched.
I know some cities also they hire attorneys, right? They have their own.
Some cities have in-house city attorneys. Others, like Oregon City, hire a law firm as its city attorney. That's actually not the point that this discussion is going to. It's whether it's in-house or through a law firm, who actually is the one doing the hiring and have the power to fire the city attorney.
That's a specific piece.
Yeah.
I guess back to the unbiased piece.
Sure.
I know a little bit about you through our conversations, but I just, I wonder, that's my honest opinion. Can we get an unbiased opinion from Jim Nocita on this particular issue?
Let me. I'm going to segue, John, with your comment by going back to the first presentation I made and the questions that were posed by Mr. LaSalle and Vice Chair Secretary Wilhite, because I remember Mr. LaSalle kind of raised the same kind of question that you were raising about my bias and point of view. I definitely have a point of view, and I definitely have a bias. I mean, everybody, if they're enrolled in this political party or that political party, we all have a point of view. We can't not have a point of view. I mean, it's part of being human. So that takes me to the comment that Mr. LaSalle made, which was, I don't want to hear just your point of view. I think if I'm, reflecting the comment, and I told him I agree with him, and I want to hear from people with different points of view, because, it's when you get that mix, that presentation of a lot of different points of view and perspectives and biases, that I think the truth comes out, and people, can kind of get the big picture. I think, because I did spend 3 years on commission, and I have sat in executive sessions, and I have a pretty good idea on how city government works in Oregon City, I think I am a person to start a discussion. I also have a passion for this issue, going back to when I was, in my 20s and doing Freedom of Information Act lawsuits. It's just something that I feel very passionate about. So I take the initiative to come and present an idea like this, to have this discussion. If someone had done that before I did, that'd be great. But I'm the one that's taking the initiative, and if someone wants to, take the initiative and come sit in this chair and present an opposite idea after I present my presentation, and we have this discussion and it goes on for some time, I think that'd be terrific. I'm trying to get a discussion going. I certainly have my point of view, and I don't hide the fact that I have a point of view, but I certainly I just love, that's why I got into politics. I love the clash of ideas, and I want to hear from staff. I'd love to hear from the city manager. I'd love to hear, especially, who I'd love to hear is the city attorney, and I'm going to tell you why. Mr. Sullivan is like a dean of a lot of things in Oregon City. He's like, he's like one of the grand elder statesmen of Oregon's land use planning program. He was my professor at Lewis and Clark. He's not going to be our city attorney forever. I hope, God, I know his work life and his working hours, but someday Ed's going to retire. Someday. I hope by getting this discussion going on charter amendments or a charter review committee that he can help us as kind of like one of his crowning achievements before he retires, help guide us through a charter review process. If you want me to expose one of my biases, that's one of them. I think we have a jewel in Mr. Sullivan, in his experience and his wisdom. I disagree with him on some things, but I agree with Mr. LaSalle. I'll also say, Mr. LaSalle, I don't think it's Kathy and Betty that have been dragging on the charter amendment. I think it's staff that's been dragging on the charter amendment, the charter review process.
We have three more people that had.
But yeah, I do want to see. I'll admit the bias. I do want to see Mr. Sullivan, help us, guide us through that before he retires.
Mike?
And I agree. I agree with what you have said about Mr. Sullivan, and I think it'd be a great forum for him and a great heritage for him to speak to us and educate us. I really feel like land use In the last 3 years that I've been here, we've had people talking to us about earthquakes and landslides, water rate rollbacks, bad plumbing. Those all relate to land use, but we don't have a lot about civics and parliamentary things, and that has to do with land use too. That's a huge part of it. It's as big a part of it as an earthquake. We have more of a chance of. We should be studying more about civics. They don't teach it in school much, and if we keep stuff at a 5th grade level and talk about geology and water and pipes and plumbing and basic civics, it would be a great asset for the city, and I really applaud you being here. Yeah. And I don't really think of it as a political thing. I think of it as civic and parliamentary and educational.
Kathy?
Yeah. It's no disrespect, John, but to me, we all have bias. And I think Jim is moving on and trying to educate us. And I can understand whether he's saying something I like or not like. I'm old enough at 68 to know. And I'd like to hear him. And I don't want us to be criticizing each other anymore, because I don't like it. I thank you and applaud you for making the effort.
Tom?
Yes, I want to thank Jim for proposing that we study our charter. Last year, a number of us on the CIC served in the capacity of taking a look at the 9 different neighborhood association sets of bylaws. And that was an extensive review of 9 different sets of documents and trying to come up with a template, if you would, of what would be the best possible parts of all of those 9 as it relates to how a neighborhood association can effectively operate. And I think that that is the opportunity before us here, is as people who are interested in our city and the success of our city, we need to understand what our charter does for us, the protections that it provides for us, the strengths that it has, and the weaknesses, if there are any, that it might have. I have not studied the charter, and shame on me, because I should. That's what is the governing, operating document that this city of 33,000 people operates under. And we are supposed to be representing those 33,000 people. So it seems somewhat natural to me to take a look at the charter. Whether we want to break down into specific parts of it, I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I don't know what it consists of at this point. Thank you.
Amy?
Back to Katie's question of how does the CIC fit in, I think that my point all along has been I don't want to have this be that the CIC is going to take any motion. We're here to listen and then take it back to our people, and I think we've kind of agreed on that. So that might be something we need to make sure is clear, that we don't that there isn't going to be a proposal that the CIC start something, or if once we're educated, if enough people decide one way or another they would like to see something happen, then that should be a different forum. But I think that would help. That if here at the CIC we're just learning, which is great. I think we all agree that we want to do that, but we don't want to be the avenue of support or any for that's not our role, I don't think.
Okay. And
my
yeah,
thing fell
Damon,
over.
yeah. Yes.
You fell over, Damon?
I've fallen and I can't get up. Hey, wow, Jim and I cooperated. I guess back to Katie's thing, I didn't really have a problem with him putting a proposal down. Whether or not we agree to that proposal or not, it's one of the things that we've always said is don't come to us with a problem without a solution. Whether that's our solution or not, at least it's an idea for us to discuss. So, I think that it's appropriate for there to be something down there. And then as far as where the discussion goes, we'll just see where it happens. I mean, if anybody, all of us have been pretty much involved in what's going on at the city, so will know when you're speaking that you're speaking with bias, because we've been paying attention, I would hope. And I've actually read the city charter a couple, 3 times. It's one of the smallest and fastest charters in the state. I mean, to read. Some of them are literal books, and you talk like the city, the state constitution is crazy huge, and so it's like 10 pages. I mean, it's really small and it's easy to read, and I would encourage you all to do that.
And it's on the website.
Okay.
But
So we
I-
are.
I was just going to ask Kay if she could send it to me in an email that I could open up.
You should be able to open it on the website. It's under, if you go
Right.
to our website, www.orcity.org, and you go under the online services at the top, the far right, and you go down to municipal code and city charter.
Okay.
And that's right there.
Thank
hmm
That, now everybody
And you can even print it.
Everybody knows now.
Yeah.
So that is our assignment, to read the charter. And then if you do have some specific things that you'd like Jim to cover, and maybe you don't understand on the charter, can we give you those questions and you could help us
Yeah,
understand
absolutely.
better?
Do you want to give your email address?
I
or
guess
how
what
do
I
you-
would suggest is if we have any of those, that we email them to Alice.
Okay,
and
perfect.
Alice
And then I
forwards
can
them.
send
That
you-
way,
Mhm.
you can also make sure the executive committee's getting
That's
copies
great,
of the
because we do
questions, so-
plan to work with Jim as he continues the preparation for our educational program.
And you can check her spelling that way.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Okay, now we have our Public Works Director's moment in the spotlight.
I'm going to give you my biased opinion about what we're doing in Public Works.
Okay.
Don't you always?
I always do. Well, let's see. I'll go through a few things. I mentioned it before, but the McLaughlin Boulevard project, we're expected to start in January. Wildish Standard Paving Company was the low bidder, and they bid that project at $2,648,727.65. We had 8 bids. The engineer's estimate was very close to that, so we think we got a good bid. I would say 7 of the 8 bids were progressively higher, and the 8th was way out there in terms of its bid, but I didn't write down all those numbers. But the idea would be to complete that project in December of 2014. So that's...
One question on it, John.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, we had $1 million of urban renewal money going into that project, and then the feds through Metro had had allocated up to $3.5 million or something like that for this project. So we're coming in significantly below what the original allocations were. Is that correct?
Well, there's still the fees to administer the project, which we get charged by ODOT for their fee administration, and we get charged by DKS for their design and construction management. So I believe we're right on track with the funding that we have available. I don't know. I didn't write
Those
down.
fees are on top of everything.
These are specific.
This is
to-
just the contracting firm.
Exactly.
Doing the-
Specific to construction only. And we like to leave a contingency for extras as well in case we have some extras throughout construction. So I think we're right on track with what was the original budget for that project.
It would be, there's quite a bit of difference, and it would be interesting to see the actual
my recollection was-
allocations.
My recollection was DKS's contract was around $1 million.
So total project costs are about $4.5 million.
I would say less than that, but more like 4.2.
Okay.
But I can bring those numbers next time. How's that?
It would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And John, before you go on to your next subject, what kind of lane closures or detours are we going to have through that?
Well, for the most part, there's going to be some lane closures, but they're going to be more like single lane closures. When they're working around the median, they're going to be rebuilding the median. That's going to require probably a lane in each direction. So they'll probably cone people out and around, and so some of those lanes that, if you're headed into Portland, that lane that kind of ends, they'll utilize all of that for through traffic. And so, but most of the work is, well, of course, and then when they're paving, that'll be a challenging day. If they do it during the day, they may very well do that at night.
Okay, that was part
So
of my second
there's-
part of the question.
yeah.
Would they be doing anything in the off hours?
I think it's going to be nothing like what we saw with the Phase 1, which was a lot more kind of, it was a bigger impact on the community. This one will be much less, because there's a lot of sidewalk work, a lot of shoulder work. There is the median, but for the most part, you'll be able to maneuver around that. And the bike lanes may be impacted a little bit more than the travel lanes will be.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt your report.
I also wanted to mention there's a fair amount of regional transportation planning going on right now, and on the 18th, I'm scheduled to provide the City Commission a presentation on metro area regional transportation planning, and this is some of what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about trying with the library and the ideas about alternate modes of transportation. Metro definitely is the planning agency in the metro area, and a lot of the federal regulation that comes down the pike is administered through Metro. And so right now the big effort is we have a regional transportation plan, which was a 2035 plan that's being updated. And so they're calling it a small update in that we're not necessarily reviewing what they projected for revenues that would be collected or could be assembled over the next, I guess it's 25 years because it's a 2040 plan. So they basically took the numbers that they had in the last plan. They updated every 4 years, and so they did it in 2010 or 2014 will be the adoption year of the updated RTP. So all the cities actually across the whole metro area, but Clackamas County is using the same revenue projections that it used last time, as is Washington County, as is Multnomah County. And then the cities amongst the cities, we're looking at our targets that we had before. It's really based on population of where that, how that funding would be allocated across all the cities. And then we're assembling our list of projects. Pretty much for us, it was pretty easy because we've gone through that pretty big effort of our transportation plan update. So we're grouping some of those, putting them into projects that might be more like a corridor kind of project. For instance, the one I mentioned last time, which was Leland, Myers Road. We grouped that into one big project and listed it that way in the RTP. But there's a lot of projects that are in that RTP, and the timeline is just excessively fast. And so unlike the transportation system plan where we had a lot of community involvement, a lot of public information, this is going to be, we're not going to have that kind of time. The information will be there. Metro will be the one to kind of put that information out there for the public to review. But it's really just kind of trying to help prioritize some of those regional projects. It's really about, if you can believe this, it's a lot of what Metro does is about air quality. So it's trying to improve air quality through transportation enhancements that either reduce congestion or get people to use other modes of transportation. So pretty big effort. I'll be doing my best to try and cover that. I'm going to work on getting someone from Metro there as well, but just thought I'd mention that. So that's December 18th at a regular City Commission meeting.
Think quickly. Some of the estimates of the different scenarios at Blue Heron have reflected the potential of 1 million new trips a year coming into Blue Heron site. And in the regional, I was talking to the county today, county transportation planners, about how we are going to bring 1 million new visitors into Oregon City to a potential, let's say, tourist-oriented development at Blue Heron. And they said to me, we had better get going on the transportation system plan for that contingency, because once this is frozen, we can't come back until 4 more years. And so this is a glowing contingency. And it's because it ripples across this whole area, and how we could bring cars, buses, whatever, to bring 1 million people into Oregon City. And if we're trying to put together a fast-tracking plan, and we've got a regional plan, we've got to start melding all of that together ASAP. And that's their suggestion to me to bring it up and I'm talking to the 2 highest planners at Clackamas County today.
Well, those are a lot of adjectives you use there, but yeah, I think that's a key area. 99E is a key area for regional transportation planning. Trying to get ODOT focused on 205 is key for our needs, but those are going to be long-range things, Paul. They're not going to happen in the next 4 years, even though the projects that you're talking about are listed in the RTP. So better pedestrian access along 99E, better vehicle access along 99E. There's still a lot of questions about how to access that site, which have yet to be answered. But I think you're right. We've got to do our best. It'd be really nice if we could get Clackamas County focused on that area. That's been a challenge. They're excited about the Sunrise Corridor. That's where Sunrise Corridor, Happy Valley, unincorporated Clackamas County. That's where I see much of the county commission, at least. I don't know about their planners, but the county commission pretty focused on employment areas out that direction, Damascus, those kind of things. So it'd be nice to have them a lot more focused on the getting people in and out of the Blue Heron site.
I could provide an update on that, but at another time.
Okay, so I'll move on unless we got more questions. So just some CIP projects. We've got a variety of kind of what I think of smaller projects, but we're working through them. We don't have a lot of capital funding in the stormwater, wastewater, or water funds, but we're spending some money on some work in Kenema. So Paul, the pipeline under the gun shop, that's a project that we're realizing that is something we really kind of need to move on. There's also another stormwater project in the McLaughlin neighborhood near 14th and J.Q. Adams. So those of you that are familiar with that area, we had a landslide down there a couple years ago, and it's really kind of impacted our storm system there. So we'll be working on that. And then downtown on Main Street between 11th and 12th in front of the hobby shop there, we've got a failed sewer line that's collapsing. We've still got our Barkley Hills pump station project. So for those of you in the Barkley Hills neighborhood, I know it's not a boulevard project, but it's a pump station. It's an important little pump station down there. We've got to rebuild that. And then our 2014 pavement maintenance projects, we've yet to land on our list of projects, but we're going to do that soon. And then we're working on our sewer master plan, that Leland Lynn Myers Road concept plan. Our first kickoff meeting is tomorrow. And then our operations groups have been pretty focused on winter preparedness. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've done a little de-icing already, getting our equipment ready and our chains at ready. We've got a sandbag station up at the operations center on Center Street. And we're doing some downtown holiday decorating as well for the holiday tree lighting ceremony, which is on the 7th. So hopefully you can bring your families to that event. And then one other thing that's going on, actually, Katie and I are working on this a little bit. There's a goal by the City Commission to revitalize arts in Oregon City, and that landed in Public Works' pocket for I can't remember why, but it's there.
You must have missed a meeting, John.
Yeah, I think I missed a meeting. I didn't get the trolleys, but then I got the art. No, I'm part of it's
because you're a work of art.
Part of I'm a piece of work. I don't know about work. Actually, I think a lot of it's got to do with the fact that Public Works has been pretty friendly with with arts in Oregon City. Most of the artwork in Oregon City has been done through some kind of a Public Works project. And so I think, you know, that's kind of evolved over the years. But one of the things that we've yet to figure out is, well, what does that mean exactly in terms of what the city can do for that? And there's been a suggestion that maybe we have an arts commission, and we're kind of not sure whether that's a necessary evil or not, but we definitely have a problem with funding any kind of arts program. So one of the things that we've brought to the city commission in suggestion form was to bring to them in the future a percent for the arts ordinance, where certain public projects, typically building projects, like the library, for instance, or if there was a new, if, you know, it'd be like a building like this, when they built this, there'd be a small percentage of that, and then typically other agencies use 1.5%, or we're talking 1 1/3% for this one. And I guess that's open for debate, and maybe we'll need to see what kind of revenue that could generate. But that's something that's going to be coming before the city commission probably in the next few months here. So that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Alice, I had a couple of
Tom.
questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Damon did too.
Oh,
And I did.
Oh, you
Tom
didn't?
has a question for
Okay.
you, John.
Yeah, I had two questions, John. Number one, de-icing. Do we do that ourselves, or do we contract that?
We do that.
We do that. And secondly, I tried to remember what was on your list of arts items, and I've been meaning to send you an email. I don't think that the McLaughlin bust across from the, what's the end at the top of the hill?
The Fallsville House, Stillhouse.
Across from the Stillhouse. That wasn't on your list, was it?
Well, the last time you said something wasn't on my list, it was. So I'm going to have
It wasn't,
make a note, and I'm gonna
but it
look.
wasn't that. It was two other
No,
things.
no, you
One,
said-
you
I think
said,
the last time you said
I
the
mentioned two
elevated
things,
part.
and you said
That's
one of
on
them
the
is
list.
is not yet viable, so that's why it isn't on. But the bust I didn't bring up.
I don't recall. There's
Okay.
a lot of items on that list. Actually.
Okay,
But I'll look for that.
thanks.
And Kathy, you had a comment?
Oh, yeah, I would. John, I have to thank you. The street sweeper came by down in Payton's farm. They swept all the leaves off, and they're not going to come in my yard. I am so happy with those guys. 'Cause
They've done a great job this year.
They have.
yes,
It's amazing.
Really
It
have.
really is. It was wonderful. My husband says, "Look, look,
I'll
look."
pass that along because they
Please do, yeah.
they
Yeah,
try.
It was.
Is there
We
any,
really don't have a leaf pickup program, by the way, so we
I
don't
know it.
advocate for that.
We
Right.
No,
need,
but-
we need to get that word out, because I do see a lot of people who are of the belief that because Portland does, we do.
Yeah.
And so they
may
intentionally
stop.
blow all their leaves into the
Into the
thoroughfare.
yeah.
So when I mean, we've equipped the sweeper and others with door hangers. So when that happens, and it's obvious that somebody's done that, we usually door hang them and ask them to remove those from the street.
Yeah, but these aren't big piles. They just shed in that windstorm last night. I mean, it was like a big swoop, and I looked out there and I thought, oh, I'm leaving.
I just think particularly in Kenema where I live and on Main Street, they've done a great job this year, better than I can remember.
Great, I'll pass that.
Oh, I should have been here.
Is that street sweeping specifically, or just the whole
They're
thing?
just a great bunch of guys.
Okay, I
Oh, I
think,
just want,
I get a question.
oh.
That's kind of funny. It's the same as along with Kathy. I know, so we've had a street sweeper come by our neighborhood every once in a while. Are they on a schedule, or how do they decide what to do? Because it seems like it's just pretty random.
Well, I think it is. It's hard for us to stay scheduled, but we do. They've got routes now, and we put a lot of energy into making sure we know, which area they're in, and we assign them that. During the leaf season, we actually have two street sweepers. Just one's not as good as the other, and those street sweepers are continually breaking down. So we try to stay on those routes to the degree we can. Once in a while, we'll hear from a particular neighborhood that says, hey, I haven't been here, so we might go out and hit that one, but not hit the whole area. But the idea is to apply some science to that and try and keep people, keep them moving through so that they're not in any one neighborhood on a garbage day, for instance, when the garbage pickup is out there, or or just hitting one particular neighborhood. They also try to hit the the arterials and collectors a little more often than the neighborhood streets. So.
I would echo that. I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah. Well, just out of curiosity, before we go too far, we have 2 street sweepers in a big city. Are we on par for other towns? That's a weird statistic, but I mean they're doing a great job. Is there a demand for another machine? Is that something that they ask for, Public Works?
Well, I think that they where we see the differences is in our ability to get around town. We actually we've got a tracking device on our on our main sweeper, and for a while there they were watching that pretty close, and we were really trying to increase the frequency because not only is it people that notice the leaves, but the main reason that we're out there with the street sweeper is to keep the debris out of the stormwater system. And so, the more we really track it based on the amount of debris we remove, and they have been tracking how many times they've been through the city, and that number's changed depending on what kind of problems we've had, either with the sweeper or with the amount of the speed at which fall really happens. Fall sometimes lingers forever, right, and other times it just happens. So I would say we've been really been able to show that we've been able to get through the city, the whole city. We moved from like 4 times a year. Every year we've gotten better, and I think we're up to around 10 times per year, which is almost monthly. And some say, well, I haven't seen them. Well, for the most part,
get up early.
Yeah, they're in the neighborhood. So I think we're doing really well. And other cities use contract sweeping sometimes. We've considered that, but it's nice to have your own sweeper there to kind of be a little more accountable. There's one particular guy who does most of it for us. So.
Okay, I had another question. Well, it's on the street sweeping when I complimented. I was wondering, like you said, I know it's the storm drains, because I've noticed one that's got stuff and it's going to be hard for anything to get it, and the sweeper doesn't get it out. So I wondered, do you check some of them, by driving by? Do they open it up to see if the drain is clogged down below going into the the detention ponds or wherever, or do they just sweep, and if it comes out or doesn't, not working right,
well,
how do you find it?
The sweeper can only get to what it can get to, and but we do have high priority grates, which we go check regularly. Like today, right after that windstorm and rainstorm, they were out this morning right off the bat checking high priority grates, and then a lot of that stuff will just flow right through, even though there's leaves in front of it. But if you see water backing up, you just need to call us and let us know.
Okay, because I hadn't. When I take my walk, sometimes I see it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Does our chamber queen have anything to say tonight?
I don't quite know how to respond to that one. I'm going to
I didn't say chamber pot.
Executive Director of the Chamber.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that one works very nicely. Thank you, Tom. I apologize, I'm going to need to breeze through these just a little bit. I still owe my son a trip to the store to grab some new PE shoes. He starts PE class tomorrow morning, and they need to be clean. And there just aren't any clean ones around home. So, first of all, I want to say we hosted, with the help of the Clackamas Community College Foundation, a fantastic State of Our Schools luncheon. This was that last Tuesday, actually Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving, and so informative. We are so fortunate to have folks like Dr. Joanne Truesdell, who's the president of Clackamas Community College, as well as Larry Didway, who's superintendent of Oregon City School District. These folks just really have the very best in mind for the students, both from that pre-K age to folks our ages who still wish to continue our education. and as well as the taxpayers. You can tell that they just work so hard to develop that fine line between caring for the needs of the kids and caring for the pocketbooks of the taxpayers. And that was very evident last Tuesday. By the end of this week, on our chamber, Oregon City Chamber website, there should be at least the PowerPoints available from both of our speakers, and hopefully a little summary. And then eventually I'll have information as to when it will be shown on Willamette Falls Media Center's televised programming. So that is being made available to the community at large. Okay? I did want to let folks know that coming up on Tuesday, December 10th, Main Street, Oregon City is having its annual meeting. It will be held at 9 a.m. in the holding cell at the Verdict, which is at essentially 8th and Main. And that's a good time to kind of just be in the know in terms of how Main Street, Oregon City is growing and transitioning. Be a great opportunity to meet the new executive director, Jonathan Stone. So I would certainly share that information with you and suggest that that might be an opportunity for you to meet with some of those folks.
Is that open to the public?
I believe it is. I believe it is. And that's right, Michael?
Yep.
Great.
You said 9 a.m.?
9 a.m. Tuesday, December 10th at the holding cell. And in case you like an early morning that same day, actually, I'm really insisting that you do, in fact. I'll just put it to you that way. From 7 to 9 a.m. on Tuesday, December 10th, so you can eat your breakfast and then go to the annual meeting for Main Street, Oregon City. The Chamber of Commerce, along with McLaughlin Place, and our city commissioners and staff are all working together to host a benefit pancake breakfast. All funds going to the Officer Robert Libke Fund. And I've got to tell you, this community cares about each other so much. You know what? When it comes to voting, we may not always see eye to eye on things. In fact, I can't tell you how many times I've seen things that come out, 47% and 53% or 48%, somewhere in there. We don't always see eye to eye. But the thing that we do see eye to eye on is caring about each other in our community. And that has become extremely evident throughout this tragedy that happened in Oregon City. And I would just like to brag on our businesses and how our businesses are caring for the community and Officer Libke. Not only is McLaughlin Place located up on Malala Avenue taking care of, hosting as our location, but they're picking up the coffee and the creamers and the salts and the peppers and the table linens and the plates and they're bringing in extra chefs from other locations to be there on site to cook for this event. I mean, they're just rolling out the red carpet, and on top of that, also offering a corporate donation. Advertising being done by Beals Impressions Printing. They're the ones who printed our flyers, by the way. Stitch and Embroidery will be doing street signs. The event is on Oregon Live. I believe will also be on Oregon City News. I know that KPTV Channel 12 will at least mention the event, and we tried really hard to get it covered by some of the morning crews, but it doesn't look like that will happen, unless some of you have an in and talk to me after the meeting.
Mention they get free breakfast.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Willamette Egg Farms, south of us, donating 60 pounds of liquid egg. Bacon being donated and cooked by Portland Catering Company, and they have a very active, vibrant part of Oregon City. So don't let Portland Catering Company, don't let that name fool you. Tables and chairs are being donated by Pioneer Rental. Pancake mix, like 30 pounds of pancake mix being donated by Hagen Food and Pharmacy. Buttermilk for the pancakes being donated by Grocery Outlet. 4 gallons of buttermilk. Juices by Midway Historic Public House. To-go containers, Providence Willamette Falls Medical Center. The balloon arch, again, donations from McLaughlin Place. But what's really cool, our Oregon City High School leadership class is coming in to help design, to put the balloon arch together. helium from Matheson Gas Professionals, and the list, frankly, goes on and on. And this is one of those things where you just have to be proud of each other and what's being done. So I really, really would encourage you, please, if you can't come for a good old-fashioned gathering to do some good for Libke's family, then pass the word on, please.
But you have a drive-through as well.
And we do have a drive-through. Absolutely. So if you don't have time for the sit-down, that's fine. And I didn't even have to have Michael, I didn't have to visit with him beforehand to cue that at the right time. So thank you very much.
Because his car's going to be going around and around.
The other piece that's being done is these bracelets were made. It does say OCPD officer Rob Libke, end of work 11/4/13, and we are end of watch. Thank you, end of watch. We are selling these for a $2 donation, and if anyone likes to get in on that, then let us know. So I'm very happy to share that with you, and would be even happier to see you that morning. And then last but not least, going back to the conversation we had at our November meeting about Oregon City businesses getting more connected with our neighborhood associations, what I would like to propose is that perhaps February or sometime in 2014 at least, perhaps the CIC would co-host with the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce an event called either a Chamber After Hours, which occurs once per month in the late afternoon time period, early evening, or a Good Morning Oregon City, which is held every Wednesday morning at 7:30 in the morning. And what it would be an introduction. It would be an introduction of our businesses into CIC, but more so into neighborhood associations, what they do. And I think it would be great to actually do what is offered at the farmers markets with the map. Find where your business is located on the map. Guess what, folks? That means you're a part of that neighborhood. And so really make that an introduction at that point in that group setting, and then that could be a launching plate or a launching board for maybe more of a one-on-one connection with our neighborhood associations. So that's what I would offer you at this time.
Thank you. Do you want some people to start working with you now on that?
If that's an area of interest, I would, if there was maybe 1 or 2 people that I could contact and say, okay, these are some dates that I'm kicking around. This is what I'll need from CIC to make this happen. And it would be probably a location like the Commission Chambers or perhaps Pioneer Community Center. Those are 2 very appropriate locations. Get some buy-in from you folks as to whether you like an after-hours feeling where all of you folks are off of work probably, or if you'd rather do an early morning, get it over with early in the day, and then we can just kind of go from there.
Tom, are you still interested in
Yes.
helping Amber with that?
I'd like to feel from the group, though, whether they prefer the morning or the afternoon.
Well, the PM, I would. You can linger longer in a PM setting.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We like to linger.
We do, longer.
Linger and longer. So
Is there a cost that the CIC would have to come up with for that?
typically, people are happiest with food and beverage. And so if it's an after hours, then it's some very light hors d'oeuvres of some kind. It can even be chips, salsa. I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy at all. And then lemonade, water, you name it.
I would think we could take this back to our neighborhoods and get some volunteer food, some donated food, if that would work. You know, because we don't have a budget here at the CIC, but we can reach out to our neighborhoods and ask for their help. So we've got Tom that wants to work on you with it, and I wouldn't mind helping out too.
Okay.
And Mike.
Okay.
So could we talk sometime, I know this is a busy time, maybe January.
After first of the year.
Yeah, in January, and then maybe present something to the group.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay, approval of the minutes is next. Did everybody have a chance to read them? They were emailed to you. Are there any corrections that people are aware of that need to be made before we vote on them?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. Is there any further discussion before we vote?
I'm going to say that was Damon maybe to move, and that was Brian Boyce to second.
It was.
Okay, I just want to clear, because I know there's 2 seconds there, sorry.
We're eager.
Second after.
There was a third. All right, having no discussion, let's vote.
Okay, Tony?
Yes.
Michael?
Abstain.
Paul?
Yes.
Amy?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Faith?
Yes.
Damon?
Aye.
Alice?
Aye.
Bob?
Yes?
Barbara?
Yes.
Ingra?
Yes.
Todd?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And it passes with 1 abstention.
Okay. All right, under unfinished business, we have the CIC bylaw correction that Bob LaSalle, our chair of the bylaws committee, will bring forward.
Well, the city commission passed our bylaws, thank goodness, with only one change, and that was Article 8, Section 5, in regard to elections. And there was a point of law brought up from the attorneys, so they have had us strike out the following sentence. Individual votes will not be revealed, but will be filed in the city records with the minutes by the CIC liaison. I explained to that meeting that the spirit of our wording in this was to avoid the hard feelings that came about in last December's elections when everybody raised their hands and said, I vote for so-and-so. And that was a pretty sad situation. I don't have any objection in removing that sentence because it still says written ballots will be provided to the members on election night. The ballots will be tallied by the CIC liaison and one other city staff member. The results will be announced to the membership at the same general meeting. The results will be announced. We don't have to tell what each individual member, how they voted, because you'll each be given a written ballot and you'll have to put your name on the ballot for it to be counted. Those ballots will be available for anybody to look at. It's going to be on the city records and part of the minutes, so it won't be what would be considered a secret ballot. So I don't think this is going to change how we operate.
And that was our intent and understanding anyway.
Right.
It was just a wording with the attorney.
Yeah, it was. So, actually, I was prepared for many other objections, so I was delighted with the outcome myself.
Paul, you have a question?
I would like to move that we accept this change as outlined by Bob LaSalle and go on and vote on it.
Second.
Okay. All right, is there any discussion before we vote on the acceptance of this correction to our bylaws? If not,
Okay,
Amy?
Tony?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Faith?
Aye.
Damon?
Abstain.
Alice?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
Ingra?
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Passed with 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. Under new business, this was not on your agenda, but I just wanted to ask the neighborhoods their representatives that are here tonight. If your neighborhood is actively involved in any emergency preparedness, it's a several-phase program to reach out to your neighbors and get your kits for survival ready and all those things. Can anybody speak to this? Is your neighborhood actively working on this? Ingra?
Our neighborhood has had the speakers come in and talk about it, and they've given us the forms that you can put out to say help or okay, the green and red signs. And but it's only been for the people who've been attending the meetings. We haven't reached out to all those who haven't attended.
Okay, so only those people in attendance have gotten the word. Okay. Anybody else? The point of my question is, should the CIC be spearheading this? The information is there, and in fact, I don't know how many years ago it was that this organization, in fact, had a wonderful presentation that they did in cooperation with the city about emergency preparedness and what could befall us with a big earthquake or any other major catastrophe like flooding, which we know so well. And yet, I don't think we're doing much. Paul, you have a comment?
I think it really is a valid thing, and I think this is an area where we need to pull together and try to create these core supports. How do we interact? How do we reach out? And how can we support one another? And and in doing so, I think we strengthen the city, we strengthen our neighborhood associations, and we can save lives.
Brian?
Yeah, we haven't brought this up for discussion yet. We're just too new and on this level playing field that we've got now. But I'm definitely interested and aware of this subject, and I'd like to start talking with people. Of course, we are primarily businesses again, and that might be something we want to combine with one of the businessmen association and go ahead as a group.
Save your business too. It's part of the component.
Well, yeah, and some businesses are going to flood someday. So,
Mike,
I just thought that I just thought about that. It's been a while since we've had one of our topics that we deal with is emergency preparedness, earthquakes and landslides and floods and fires, and maybe that's something that we should address on a maybe on a schedule and at least on an annual basis, bring one of those subjects up or all those subjects up, because otherwise they might just slip away, and it might just be something that we do somewhat scheduled, like perhaps.
Tom?
Yes, we've struggled with it. We had a speaker come in from Clackamas County Emergency Preparedness. She did a wonderful job of presenting to the people that we had present. We have had one follow-up meeting to go through additional information and expand upon what she had provided. We're planning at our January meeting of having a video that she had given to us addressing emergency preparedness. I think it's a critical issue, and it's something that I'm not going to let go of. The problem we are encountering is that we are so few in numbers that getting a volunteer or a number of volunteers who are willing to devote the time and effort into organizing their little street portion of our neighborhoods has been a real challenge. We just have not come up with anyone who's willing to even come forward. And in order for this program to work effectively, you really need to be in a smaller community group of a dozen or 15 homes because you can't do it beyond that. You have to have a small group setting so that you get to know the people who are in that little group and know where everybody's gas meter is, know where those people are who are likely to need help because of age or an invalid situation and so forth. It doesn't do any good, I don't think, to have 800 or 1,500 people in a neighborhood association trying to put this together, but I'm grasping for ideas on how do you get it really down to the grassroots. And that's what we're struggling with.
Yes. Amy?
I was talking, we've had an issue with crime in our neighborhood that somebody brought up taking on a neighborhood watch. And I was talking with Chris Wadsworth, and that is an issue that she was going to address after the new year. And so maybe this is something, and they have the same problem. You can't have a neighborhood watch be the whole neighborhood association, same issue. So maybe this is something that we can work with them to combine whatever maybe avenues they're using. Maybe we can, maybe they have some ideas of the smaller numbers that we can work with.
Well, could I get some volunteers tonight to work with me to try to come up with a plan to ignite the neighborhoods to do this? And it will probably mean we'll need to meet with the experts and get their input on how do you start from zero to get.
I've honestly tried in Kenema and found it very difficult. People don't want to share. It's kind of like it's been frustrating, and I'd love to find some magic because I think it's needed.
I do too. I'm scared. Every day that goes by, I'm thinking I'm that closer to the big one, and I'm not ready. Brian, you said you would.
The big one is anywhere from tomorrow to 300 years from now. So.
Yes, I know.
But I've collected some material over the last few years on this subject that I'd be glad to share. And,
great.
And the different Clackamas County Emergency Management, for instance, would be a good resource to start with. But I'd be quite happy to volunteer on that subject.
Thank you. And I've got Amy. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, John? Yeah, you brought this up last meeting, and that's why I'm talking about it now.
I appreciate that because I think it is important, and I think it's important for this group because it does seem like a mechanism that could help gain interest in neighborhood involvement. But I don't know the formula for that. But what I was going to mention is you're right near operations. Have you met Martin Montalvo yet, our new operations manager? Because he is.
Oh, that's right, he did.
He's we did that exercise, and then he led department heads up the EOC through some EOC training from emergency response training, which we really needed to get some training up there. It'd been a while, and we've got a lot of new department heads. But anyway, it was obvious to me that his background in evacuations in Florida, and that's where he's from. They do that pretty regularly, so he's been through. I can't remember the big events, but the oil disaster. He was involved in that. He's also in the Coast Guard, so he's kind of a military backing, which I just think he'd be a wealth of information that would help. Okay. Again, I know it's a CIC thing, and too much city involvement can be problematic sometimes, especially when it's sharing contact information. But I think it'd be worthwhile for maybe you to spend an hour with him, maybe ask him if you could just pick his brain and see what kind of ideas he has, because he's got lots.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Well, Barbara.
Yes, I have attended 2 workshops on this preparedness. One was a well-attended down at the Episcopal Church on Washington. And that fellow was willing to come out to anybody. Mm-hmm. The trouble is getting people to come out. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you do that. I think they almost have to have a scare.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm thinking that maybe we have to be more proactive about it. We talk about it and we bring it to our neighborhood associations, but we're not actually going door to door to our neighbors and saying, we're trying to map the neighborhood. I'd like to meet you, and this is what I'm doing, and will you partner with me to give me the information I need to keep you safe?
Yeah. They did stress the fact that you really should even 8 to 10 people, because that's all you can handle. That's all you can take care of. So you'll have 8 or 10 people. What do you do if you have children that need to be fed and you're the one with the food? You're the one with the freezer and the generator. Then you're going to have everybody at your house.
Right.
And, yeah.
I think it's just going to involve reaching out in a more personal way. That's my take on it.
I hope so.
Thank you for the volunteers, Paul, Amy, Brian. Thank you. And John, I will get in touch with Martin. Okay, next, committee reports. Crime prevention, I guess it did get attached. So Todd, I noticed that you weren't there. I was sitting in at the Chief's advisory for someone else, and so I did it for you.
Great, thank you.
I hope you don't mind.
No, I wasn't able to attend the meeting.
Yeah,
so
and so it was great. It was, not all that long after the funeral for Officer Libke, and we talked about that a little bit. And you saw in my report, if you read it, that the outpouring of love and sincere sympathies from all over the nation, even Canada, have been extended. And Amber's right. It's amazing when you see how much love and caring can develop in a community, and it can extend far beyond that. And then the other thing I just wanted to point out that I had reported on was that the fire department had undertaken a CPR class with the middle schoolers, and they charged them to take their learning home to their families and friends and teach them as well. And so in doing so, they've trained over 2,700 people CPR. So that was a pretty impressive thing, I thought. Anyway, my report was online attached to our agenda, so if you want to read more, you can.
Kathy has a question for you.
Yeah, no, I had a comment. When you said that, maybe that's an avenue, teaching the kids preparedness, letting them go home and say, Mom, Dad, do we have the garbage can? Do we have a blanket in there, a flashlight? Do we have some candles and matches? Do we have a can opener?
Kathy, are you going to be on our committee too?
No. No.
Yes, that is a good point. Your ideas are great.
Yeah. Because I was listening to you.
Good try.
Well, that's a good question. I don't have children, but does the fire department, when we were kids, they would come to the school and give you a little label to put around a box of salt and keep by the fire, by the stove for a fire extinguisher.
Baking powder or soda?
No, it's Morton salt and just wrap it around. And then, but they would give us a big spiel. Does the fire department do that still for the school districts? Do they educate kids?
I'm sure they do in one way or another. It's just a
willing to
matter of
do whatever you ask them to.
They'll do
how,
anything.
My son
What
has
they
not brought
educate
home
about.
any Morton salt or a wrap to
Or
put on a
wrapper,
Morton salt, so that's all I can say.
Okay, land use. I think Paul had something he was going to share tonight.
Going to pass out some stuff here to you guys this way. This is a series of emails that I had that I went before the Planning Commission representing the CIC, but this is to try to let everyone know what the situation is with the South End Road or South End Concept Plan. I recently went up to Clackamas County and talked to the two head transportation planners to confirm some of my understandings that are in this email that I sent to them, and it was try to keep it simple. When I use the word EDUs, that's equivalent dwelling units. The number of houses that we might put into the South End Road Concept Plan are about 2,500. They agreed with me that each house will generate approximately 10 trips per day per house. So if you multiply it out, that's 25,000 potential new daily trips when we have a full build-out. And we talked about the county road, the South End Road. He said there is no way the South End Road could be expanded, coming down the hill. What you see is what you get. Said even John wouldn't take South End Road even if we tried to give it to him. Anyway, so what I need is your help, and this is just a primer to it, to where we think it out together, and I need literally a group of people to help quantify this, because we'll come back up before the Planning Commission and eventually the City Commission as to how do we handle 25,000 trips generated. And as Larry Conrad told me today, he said, well, those trips have to go someplace. And when you fill up the system, so as an example, South End Road and Warner Parrott, once that intersection kind of fills up, and it's close to being full right now, then it flows north down South End Road, and it fills up at 2nd and High Street, and then it fills up at 2nd and 99, and then when that gets too full, then everybody takes an escape route and will go towards probably east on Warner Parrott, and he says then we'll overflow Warner Parrott, and then we'll overflow the next intersection at Warner Parrott and Leland there, and then people will want to escape south, and they'll go to Highway 99 on South End Road, and we'll fill it up, and that's been a killer intersection where a lot of people die. And so the solution to this is not simple. And so if I can just put out the facts and get the agreement with all of the transportation planners that the facts that I lay out here are correct, and that's what they've said, they are correct. So now what do we do? And so that's almost, you might say, above my pay grade. It's something we need to, as a group, kind of wrestle with and try to come up with some ideas. And therefore, my idea would be that we get people who have a passion to try to solve the unsolvable, figure it out. We come up with some ideas and try to quantify them in such a way as that we can impact the discussion proactively and intelligently. That's all. And so if there are people, Madam Chair, if you would be willing to help gather together some people that we can discuss this, who have a concern about it, where we could just get together, and I hope that through this, what I'm providing you, that you can kind of think it through and you can see the trips and see where people might go. And in the back, you start to see the distances, and where the crow flies is oftentimes the direction people want to go.
Amy,
So,
did you have a question for Paul?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the TAC, isn't that what they're for? Should we have a committee, set like an ad hoc committee, get together, and then, like you had already taken it, it looks like will show up in Bob's report, that you brought this up to the TAC and they can look at it.
I have forwarded this on to Blaine. I have forwarded on to Bob. Most, these people talk with Tom, talk with other people about it. But somewhere along the line, we just have to make sure that it's open, vetted properly, out in so that the pluses and the minuses, and where no one can be looking at it. It's like, if I don't want to be the person on point, be the singular person on point. It has to be kind of understood and agreed that this could impact our region's transportation grid in a major way, and we have to figure out. We can't just stick our head in the sand on it. That's all. I don't know what we do, but one thing we can't do is stick our head in the sand.
Tom?
At first blush, I tend to agree with Paul that if the South End's concept plan is to be successful, this is a major hurdle. And I want that plan to be successful. I think it's important to be successful. I guess the unknown fact here is that this is at full build-out.
Yes.
Those 25,000 additional daily trips would be 40 years from now, or somewhat over the next 40 years. From a technological standpoint, we don't know what we're going to have in the way of personal levitation devices where we won't be taking automobile trips. I look at the technology and how it's developing, and I say, maybe we are worrying about something that will never happen. So I think that has to be considered in the equation also.
Well, and the other element of that is enough people move out there, and TriMet will come back.
Well, TriMet can't get down the hill is the issue.
Well, but it's one bus going down the hill, not 243 cars going down the hill.
But there's a weight limit on that hill, and the bus can't get there.
Depends on the
The
bus.
the small cat buses can get there, and that's a temporary solution, to contract with Canby to have a cat come in.
But again, you're talking about technology. Who knows what the weight limit
We
will
don't-
be
we
when they
don't-
do a new rebuild of the hill or, whatever. I mean, there's,
Yeah, it's a slide area, and I don't think they're going to be able to do a whole lot with that slide area, but.
who knows in 25 years what they'll be able to do to the
Mike-
slide area on
Mike's
the
up.
hill.
I don't think we can figure it out tonight, but I think that it is relevant to all of our neighborhoods, and it's something that is an educational thing, and we need to get it out there before it gets too far down the road. Specifically, I live in Kenema, and I use South End Road, and if you live in South End, you use South End Road, and those are things that impact you, and that's land use, and it's relevant to us. So I think it's very nice that you put all these facts out. I would encourage everybody, if they're watching on TV, if you live in the neighborhoods, to pay attention and to find out more about it, and just as an educational thing.
Todd?
Yeah, from being in Tower Vista, my daughter goes to John McLaughlin, so well aware of Central Point and South End, and it's probably just anecdotal, but I've noticed a whole bunch of homes up now for sale on South End Road in the last couple of months. I just want to say I'm interested in this, Paul. I think it's a real big issue. Tower Vista's had a lot of build out with new development and with no change in the roads either, and so traffic's going to be an issue. We need to address that. And I think that with the size of homes they're building on the 6,000 square foot and higher density lots, we're going to have a lot of new families there. And to say someone that has to get their kid to school, go to work, go to a soccer game, is going to ride a bus or ride a bike or walk is not a realistic expectation. So, I'd love to levitate. That would be really cool. But I do think I just want to agree that this is an issue, and I think there's solutions here, and I agree with Paul's point that the time to look at these is now, and not when they become a crisis.
Well, we have two options. We can take some volunteers to meet with Paul and discuss this, or the second option would be for all of us to read this and then get in touch with Paul at that time. Paul, would you rather have a committee tonight, or would you like to give us?
I would love to have some committee people to kind of to sit down and go through the give and take, and because sometimes somebody can glean up one good idea, and that can really create other good ideas, and I think we need some real creative thinking.
Allow the homes to be built provided they provide at least 2 personal levitation devices.
That's your input.
Can I suggest that we have an ad hoc committee, and then that committee, if you determine that you can come up with something, then that group goes to the TAC? Because remember when Bob was saying when neighborhoods come together and a whole bunch of them come, it can help escalate this. And I think that would be the best thing for us to do is get if the group decides to do something, use the avenues that we already have in place.
I would say that that's not going to be very timely. The Planning Commission is meeting next Monday for their second meeting, most likely the one that will move it on to City Commission. And City Commission will meet the end of the month for their first, and at the beginning of January for their second, and most likely adoption of the South End Concept Plan.
Okay.
So something
Gotcha.
slow and protruding through.
So show up at City Commission with the group. Is what
Yeah,
you're
that would.
saying?
I mean, I don't know that.
If there is
depending on
anything.
how chummy everybody wants to get with Paul over the next several days, but to get something to Planning Commission. But the record's open through the City Commission. Through their process. So.
And the plan.
And through the Planning Commission.
Well, right. I'm just saying it's open now all the way through what the City Commission's doing. So unless you jump fast and get something on by Monday, then it might be easier for a group of 2 or 3 people to put things together. A lot of neighborhoods are meeting over the next, or just met, but have an opportunity to maybe get to that first City Commission with the cogent, logical argument. I mean, Paul's already been to us with this document. And we've started the debate and asked some questions of staff and asked some questions of Paul. So, you know, I think the next step would be to get to city commission with the multiple fronts of attack.
And there has been a joint work session between the city commission and the planning commission, and two of the city commissioners had concerns when it was brought before that joint work session. Betty Mum, I believe it was, particularly addressed this traffic overload situation. And you know, they're aware, they're looking for citizen input. I think Bob hit it on the nose, Mahoney, at your planning commission. He said, well, where is everybody? Nobody showed up tonight at the planning commission. So it must not be an important issue.
John?
Yeah, I guess I want to say that there's a fair amount of information in the record on this project as well. So there's the whole South End concept plan, but there's also a lot of traffic data and traffic information in the appendix to this document. So that's one way to kind of educate yourself. The other thing I would say is Pete Walter has been he's a planner. He spent many hours hearing this topic and hearing the response from the professionals that the city has hired to kind of figure out these traffic solutions. The other thing is the areas that are listed as 3 travel lanes on South End Road aren't the hill necessarily. They're more up on the hilltop, which while it's only 2 lanes striped, it's very wide in a lot of places, and over time it's going to, you know, those areas that aren't widened would continue to be widened. The section that Paul's worried about along the hill is 2 lanes, and we see the problems at the intersections down at South Second and up at Warner Parrott, and those intersections do have solutions that would move a lot more traffic than what they do now. The 4-way stop at South Second is pretty inefficient right there, so that's something that could happen. I think the other one that I heard was just the idea of a landslide. We heard a fair amount about that at the last Planning Commission meeting, and I guess my thought is while it is a piece of road that I'm concerned about. I live off South End Road as well. Whether it's were to slide, it could slide tomorrow, I guess. And what happens if it slides tomorrow? If it slides tomorrow, then the region.
I'm in trouble.
Then the region is going to come and they're going to fix the problem. It's a regional corridor. I mean, South End Road is a route that's used when 99E goes down. So there's going to be, like when landslides happen across the state, there will be an award-winning project that will fix that particular problem and probably may even make it 3 lanes coming down the hill. I don't really know. I don't necessarily think that it's needed. But when that happens, there's likely going to be a solution there that we're all going to be kind of going, wow, there's another side to the downside of a slide. And so I just, this is a long-range plan. I think the numbers that get flung around are, again, biased sometimes. And I just, I think the idea is the community on South End could use some good planning and to develop right. And I think that there's been a significant amount of good planning that's gone into this project. Transportation is the biggest hurdle. It's not the only big hurdle. There's utility problems out there as well. So, just kind of seeing this through, I guess time will tell, but I think the good planning has happened. And I think transportation, there's lots of, I don't know that we're going to levitate, but that would be, I agree, Tom, that would be pretty cool. I'd rather be beamed, though, to be but, so I think that, and I guess the other thing is there's, if somebody lives up there, I kind of like the idea of having housing that maybe my child could, afford to live in, and having, maybe a retirement center up there on the top that maybe I could retire to and stay in the neighborhood as opposed to going into Portland or someplace like that might offer that. So I just don't think it's all bad. And, this transportation is a hurdle, but it's not something that we can't overcome. But it's going to take some time. We've got time. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. That's all.
Do you have some more of these, Paul, these handouts?
Yes.
Because I think McLaughlin meets this week for steering, isn't it? I could take some to the steering committee and see if we could generate some ideas there.
This is something.
Thank you. Would that be helpful?
That'd be wonderful.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just need open thinking.
All right. Thank you. Transportation, Bob?
Well, I think my attachment pretty much says it, unless you didn't get to look at it. It's a pretty short report.
I didn't see it. Could you read it for my
Okay.
benefit?
The TAC had a meeting on November 19th and voted in new officers. The chair is Steve Johnson, and the vice chair just happens to be me now. Mike Berman gave a presentation on concerns over speeding at Highway 99 and Main Street, and he's hoping that the TAC will take action. That'll be put on a future agenda. Paul Edgar spoke of the speed limit concerns in the Kanema neighborhood, and the TAC will also put that on a future agenda. And in fact, I drove through there the other day. It's quite interesting. Betty Shaftsma.
He was just testing to see if it was possible or not.
You are in trouble if that landslide happens.
Yeah, I know.
Betty Shaftsma is leaving the TAC. She's been a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee for 14 years.
Wow.
I mean, if that isn't a commitment, I don't know what is. So we're all
So last century.
sad to see her leaving, but boy, that's something. There are several transportation studies going on to include the Dutch Brothers at 10th and Main Street, and the Myers Road, Leland Road, Lynn Avenue corridor. There's a study going on there. And then we interviewed 3 TAC member what do you call it? Applicants, thank you. And we're passing on a recommendation to the mayor for his appointments. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Before we start our roundtable, I want to remind everyone that there is a Get Well card on the back counter for Steve Anderson. I signed it, and I'm hoping that that will present some seed thoughts so that you all could sign it. And then we also have an envelope for just whatever you want to contribute. We're going to send him a plant or some flowers or something to wish him well. So with roundtable, Tony, would you like to start?
Yeah, nothing much really is going on right now. You know, everybody's going crazy with the holiday shopping, and so our next meeting is coming up in January, on the second week of January. So far so good. Yeah.
Barbara?
We had a steering committee meeting a couple weeks ago, and we were really surprised. We had an unusually large turnout in the Park West neighborhood of concerned citizens that are concerned that they have large acreage lots, and as a builder that wants to reduce or get the zoning changed to 4 or 6? 6. And they're very concerned about that. So that is still yet to come into the city planning, and Bob did a good job of reassuring them of the process, which, here we go with the transparency. He was able to explain what the course is and what their options are, and thank them for coming, and they were very happy with the support they got from the steering committee in the neighborhood. So it was good.
Damon? Oh.
Kanema had its fall meeting. It was we had a presentation by the city on the legacy, Willamette Falls Legacy Project. It went to everything. We had the police make a presentation. It just seemed like that by the time we got through, we had some neighborhood business to talk about, and in the end, we chewed up virtually all of the time and interest just on on the different presentations that went before us. And so we're going to have another meeting just to talk about neighborhood business soon. So it was long overdue, but it means how important it is that we have some time management. Otherwise, the meeting can just go on beyond what the time slot really means, and we had that problem, but it was successful because we had a lot of people.
Good. Brian?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to report. We've went through a couple of minor approvals with the city for, various storefront improvements and stuff, things that, one of them was this window is going to be shinier than before. It's like, the railroad station will be overwhelmed. So, but I will be meeting with the new director for the Downtown Business Association this coming week, and so things are moving along slowly but surely.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Kathy?
I'm just working on field stocking, and we're filling orders on top of orders. We'll have 3,200 again this year. Yeah. Well, no, it means that many people don't have a Christmas otherwise. And I'll let Tom.
Our neighborhood association is going to be meeting in January, the third Thursday of January. However, one of the things that impacts our neighborhood association, probably more so than any other, although others are affected, is that South End concept plan. The 2,500 planned homes or residences in that neighborhood will all fall within our neighborhood association. So we're very severely impacted. I would suggest that anyone who has an interest in conveying their thoughts, positive or negative, toward the South End concept plan as it's in draft form right now, attend the meeting that Damon mentioned of the Planning Commission this coming Monday, December 9th. The meeting gets underway at 7 p.m. Another meeting that is on the same evening but begins at 5 o'clock p.m. in the same location here in City Hall where we're seated now is the sign code update citizen advisory team will be meeting to discuss the update on the city's sign ordinances. Some of you are aware, some are not aware, but our city has not enforced any sign codes for quite a few years. The last update of the sign codes of a major nature was done in 1994. At that time, billboards within the city were prohibited. A-frame signs were prohibited. Banners were prohibited. We have a city today that is overflowing with illegal signs. And if that bothers you and you think that we look like a less than first-class city, you might voice your opinion to people. On the other hand, if you want the city to look as it now does, then you should voice that opinion as well. So that's at 5 p.m. next Monday. The Planning Commission meets at 7 p.m. right here in the city chambers.
Mike?
I think Paul pretty summed it up. Not a lot going on in Kenema. I just wanted to put a shout out to the Public Works. John's not here, but Eric Hand of Public Works has done a great job of trying to corral Coffee Creek, which is going through our underneath our a building on our property, and they just did a great job. It was really phenomenal. They've sort of put a good Band-Aid on it. And then I have a quick question. I've been dying to ask. Does everybody know what a marmorated brown Asian stink bug looks like? Do anybody have those in their yards?
Yeah. Are they really big?
Well, I don't know if that's what it is, but I guess.
They look like tanks, and they are a stink bug. And
The gray?
They're gray. There's different species, and we have a kind of an invasion of them in Oregon City. And I don't know that anybody's talked, but I know in Kenema especially we have large trees, and they're everywhere, and they get in. This is the time of year where they've already probably come into your home, and you'll find them behind picture frames or in your slippers.
Or if you use the clothesline during the summer and you take your clothes off and you went off the line, you go to fold them, put them away, and you open your drawer and the stink.
Are they harmful?
Yes.
They're harmful. The Asian, there's many
They're
varieties.
disgusting.
The specific one I think that we have, and I'm not sure, is the one of the many invasive species, and they are harmful to crops and to your garden, and not to people. They're mostly not carnivorous. But there are traps, and I thought we could bring this up at another meeting and maybe have vector control. They make a trap. I found one online. It's just this funny little trap. I don't know if you can see it, but you can look up stink bug traps. And I thought, as a neighborhood, if I just put them in my yard, it's not going to do any much. But if we had enough of them throughout the city and maybe we could control these guys. They really are pretty harmless. They're kind of funny little guys, but they are an invasive species. And I put that up on par for me with ivy and Himalayan blackberries.
Can I ask you a question on that? Will they freeze and die off?
No.
No,
No.
they
Nope.
won't freeze. They can
They're
burrow
tough little
and
buggers because they're in your
winter
house
weather.
hiding right now.
Yeah.
They're all over your house hiding everywhere.
You're welcome to all the ones I trapped, Mike.
Come again?
You're welcome to all the ones I trapped.
It's just
I'll
something
bring them down.
it's never been a topic.
7 or 8 of them make a complete meal.
How are they deep fried?
So that's all I had. And I also wanted to put a quick shout out because of the topic of this is a very important thing, and it's right on the border of Kanema. But the little Falls View Tavern put on a raffle benefit with the donations of downtown merchants and our only brewery in town. That is in Kanema. They donated a keg, and 100% of the proceeds went to Officer Libke, and they raised over $2,000. So it was a nice gesture on Falls View and Kanema and downtown.
I wanted to point out that Sam Leninger would probably be interested in reports on that bug down at the County Soil and Water, because they do track things like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Might even have some free traps that they put out.
Oh,
that
oh, yeah.
track it.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
Or if they want to come
Okay.
catch them,
Those bugs are big enough.
Can you get some information on how we might get some traps?
Yep.
Make contact
Or
with that
get
guy?
somebody here to show us a slide and
Yeah.
Maybe we'll bring vector control in.
Okay.
I just like to say that word.
Okay, Amy, you're next.
Well, I already forgot what I was going to say, so it must have been really good. Bob?
Okay. At the meeting that Barbara was referring to, there was actually 18 people that came to that meeting. And they are absolutely up in arms about a developer that's coming in, and they're trying to change the lot sizes from R10 to R6. And all the surrounding lot sizes are R10, or there's a few R8s and many, many larger areas. I've taken over the job of land use for Park Place because Tom Guile was previously our land use chairman, and he's now a planning commissioner, and there would be many, many times where he would have some conflicts of interest there. So, in fact, at that meeting, we had him leave when we started the discussion with these neighbors, so he wouldn't have any information. But I'm learning more about land use than I ever wished I would. And I'll just tell you one thing, that these developers can't be trusted.
What? Oh. Come on.
Well, they can be
Sorry. I'm sorry I was so naive. However, I am finding information about their devious ways, and this one here is interesting because they can average out to R6 housing, but they can still have lots less than 6,000 square feet, but they can average them out. So in this particular case, they did so. They ended up with 21 of the 42 lots under 6,000 square feet. That's 50% of the lots are under that. But one particular lot of 11,000 square feet seems to kind of skew things a bit. So they play their little game. So I know a lot of you here are already used to this, but if any of the rest of you get involved in these land use issues, you got to really watch these guys. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. You have to. They aren't really above board with you. But one good thing came out of that meeting is I think we've recruited an additional person to join our steering committee. So that was a positive thing.
Yeah, misery loves company.
A new land use chair. That's all I have.
Katie, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do. The city commission at the last meeting decided that they are going to cancel the January 2nd meeting, their city commission meeting. And so that is normally when we would do the appointments for all of our boards and committees, the new upcoming, when in December 31st, it's the when some of the boards and committees, their members are done with their term, and then the new members will get appointed at the first meeting in January. And so since they've canceled that, the first meeting in January isn't going to be until January 15th. And so the appointments for the boards and committees will not take place until January 15th. So therefore, those members will not take their seats until January 15th. So if any of you have applied for things, just know that you won't be appointed until that date. So you're not just hanging out there, because I know that the applications were due a while ago, and some of the interviews have already been done, and you're not just sitting here, saying nobody's doing anything. Well, it's because they've canceled that meeting. And then also, I do believe that the TAC appointments will actually take place a couple of TAC appointments will take place at the December 4th meeting, because they had some current vacancies, not some expired terms. So I just wanted to clear that up. And then also, in anticipation that we would vote and adopt the new CIC bylaws with that sentence removed, I've printed a copy for everyone. So please pick one up before you leave.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Katie, is there any chance that you can get PrAC to put their agenda out on the city's website? They have a meeting coming up on Thursday, the 5th, and it's still not up on the website. They typically either don't put it up at all. It would be nice to know what PrAC is doing.
PrAC, they should be putting it the same place as all of the rest of our agendas, and you're saying it's not there.
It's not there. I looked this before coming this evening.
Yeah.
Because I intend to attend it.
What is PrAC?
Parks and
Parks and Recreation's Advisory Committee.
Yes.
And it is strictly that. It is an advisory to Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't see theirs, and I thought, what's the date?
It used to be that they didn't even put it on the calendar.
They're the third Thursday of the month, though. They're not this Thursday.
No, they changed it because of Thanksgiving.
Oh, you're right. They did. They bumped it back. You're right.
To
Sorry.
The 5th. And it used to be they didn't even publish it on the city's calendar. And after repeatedly asking them to do it, they finally are doing that. But I'd still like to know what I'm going to be faced with when I get to their meeting.
Yeah, I'll look into that. Sorry about that.
Faith?
We met, the steering committee met November 5th, and we've decided to do the business of the month, and Steve is actually supposed to look into it, but for January, we were going to focus on Lifestyles Chiropractic and ask them to come to our January meeting, our general meeting, and share what they do with us and stuff. And then we had a discussion about the Neighborhood Watch Program and the fire district mapping and stuff. So at a future meeting, we want to invite people to come and talk to us about that and help us get organized on that. Our next meeting is tomorrow at the Mazatlan. But for the steering committee, our next general meeting in January, we're going to have Sue Maas from the Oregon City School District Community Education Coordinator. So trying to do educational things. So.
Great. Thank you. Todd?
Well, I just want to tell Bob that it's not only the developers that can be devious. As I live now on a street that has R10 lots on one side of the street and R6 on the other side that the city rezoned. So, it seems like
They rezoned at the request of the developer.
Well, that's not what the developer says. It's real interesting because I've talked to a lot of different people, and I've talked to Metro, and everyone has a different finger pointing as to who is responsible, and nobody ever says, "Oh, it wasn't me; it was the other thing." So anyway, good luck, and we're going to have
Well, I'll be
7
able to
houses
say I
on one
fought
side
the
of the
good
street,
fight
15 on the other.
You can rely on them to do what's in their own best interest.
Yes.
That's translucency.
Well, my impression is that a lot more, and this is just my opinion, a lot more weight comes from the desires of Metro's density requirements than the citizens. So, the other thing on the stink bugs, I have a twisty locust tree that had a whole bunch of stink bugs on it, and I was looking at that, and there are actually 2. There's the Asian one, and there's an Oregon stink bug, and the Oregon one is the good one that eats other bugs, but the Asian one eats the plants.
Yes.
So, and they're really hard to tell apart because you looked on the pictures, and so let me know about those traps because I want to get them too. So anyway, excuse my segues there. Taylor Vista is going to have a meeting on the 11th of December at the Ainsworth House and Gardens. We're going to have a presentation by the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. And also, we were lucky to get one of the representatives from the assessor's office to talk about property taxes, because I think that's a subject that everyone has questions about. So hopefully, it should be a good program, and hopefully, we'll get our postcards out on time this week.
Ingrid, you get to tie things up now.
Well, the South End Neighborhood Association will meet in January on the 3rd Thursday at the Methodist Church on South End Road. And so anyone who's listening, please come.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Everybody have a